Hello, welcome back to my kitchen. Today we're going to be making some gluten-free oatmeal cream pies. I'm very excited for these. I've been craving them for ages. I was a big fan of the Little Debbie's when I was a kid. We always kind of had them in the house. They were just a huge kind of like snack time treat that we'd always have. Unfortunately, they don't make a gluten-free version, and I haven't really seen any gluten-free products out there, maybe just not at the grocery stores that I go to. In true gluten-free person fashion, I had to take matters into my own hands and make it myself. And overall, not a very difficult recipe, pretty straightforward. It is fairly time intensive, so as long as you plan accordingly, I think anybody can handle this. This recipe itself is a gluten-free one, so if you can have gluten, you can either modify it slightly or just, go Google gluten, or not gluten-free, the oatmeal cream pie recipes. I'm using the gluten-free King Arthur flour as my flour of choice. Obviously, there's other gluten-free flours that you can go with. I feel like anything will probably work in this scenario as long as it has xanthan gum. I'm pretty sure the recipe says it needs xanthan gum. So if you don't have xanthan gum in your flour, just add a little bit. I'm pretty sure the recipe talks about that. So just read the recipe if that's your case there. And then the oats are certified gluten-free, but that's just because oats are a high cross-contamination product. And I have to be very careful of gluten cross-contamination with celiacs. So if that's the same boat for you, make sure that they are certified gluten-free oats. But if you don't have to worry about cross-contamination, or you just don't have to worry about gluten at all, any oats should be fine there. Speaking of the oats, it calls for rolled, like traditional oats, but then the first step is going to be put them in a food processor and kind of chop them up. So if you go with quick oats, you don't need to do that step. I have the traditional on hand and I have a food processor, so it doesn't really matter to me. I can just do that. But if you don't have a food processor or are going out buying oats and you're like, I don't care about any of these things, you can just go with the quick oats and then kind of cut one of the steps out there. The taste test will be at the end of the video, along with me kind of going over maybe things I do differently in the future, or maybe some things that I learned from doing this, because this is my first time making this recipe. So a lot of things that I've learned from the process, maybe things I'd approach differently, maybe some questions that I might have. So I'm gonna share all that at the end, so hopefully you stick around for it. But first, we need to run through the ingredients and then get into cooking. Certified gluten-free oats, milk, vegetable shortening, marshmallow fluff, butter, an egg, flour, powdered sugar, brown sugar, salt, cinnamon, ground cloves, Dutch processed cocoa powder, vanilla, baking powder, and baking soda. The first step is going to be in a food processor. We're going to put the oats and then we're going to pulse them like 5 to 10 times. We're going for chopped, not dust. Next, we're going to pour the melted butter into the mixing bowl and let it cool for about 10 minutes. And then add in the brown sugar, mix that until it's light and fluffy. Or, in my case, brown and sludge-like. Now, add an egg and then mix that until it's well combined. Next, sift together the flour, the cocoa powder, baking soda, salt, cinnamon, and cloves. Sift those all together into a small bowl. Now we're going to slowly add in the dry ingredients that we just sifted together. Add in the oats and mix until it's incorporated. Now we're going to put the dough into an airtight container and then throw that in the fridge for 30 to 45 minutes. Now scoop roughly 1 tablespoon size portions and then put those on a parchment lined baking sheet. Bake at 350 for 10 minutes. Now use a circular cookie cutter if you have one to round out the edges of the cookies, and then let them cool completely. Now, while the cookies are cooling, we're going to make the cream filling, and the first step of that is to just mix together the butter and the shortening until it's light and fluffy. With the mixer on low, we're going to slowly add in the powdered sugar and then the vanilla extract and the milk. And now finally, for the cream filling, we're going to add in the marshmallow fluff and then mix that on medium-high for 3 minutes. The end result should kind of resemble frosting. And now finally for assembly, just cookie, cream filling, another cookie, easy as that. All right, so here we have them. Let's give them a taste test and see how we did. These are delicious, and I have the data to back it up because I made these like a week ago, and I gave some to some of my friends, and one of them, like between each bite, was just saying like, "These are so good. These are so good." So I think they're good. So highly recommend those, and I would say make it with the cloves because it just hits the Little Debbie vibes. Like these are like gourmet Little Debbie cookies. I could not be more pleased with how well these turned out. Now, because I made these like a week ago, I was able to have them fresh from the fridge and frozen because that's kind of the three different ways that the recipe describes having them. Fridge, you can store them for 5 days. Frozen, you can store them for 3 months. I was curious to see how they would differ. All pretty much the same. All delicious. Highly recommend. Fresh is a little bit more messy because the filling hasn't set yet. Fridge is perfection. And frozen, if you eat it straight from the freezer, you're a psychopath because they are kind of rock hard. But if you let them thaw on the countertop for like 10 minutes, they become the exact same as the fridge. So make a bunch of these, put them in the freezer. You're good to go for the next 3 months. Now, in terms of like processes that I might change or things like that, stand mixer feels like overkill. It's maybe I just have a big one because I think they do make a smaller version, but it just was not really engaging the dough or like the mix when I'm stirring things up. So I think a bowl with a hand mixer probably is the way to go in the future. Also with that, the butter, melting the butter and then letting it sit for 10 minutes, but then it's saying like you should be able to like cream the sugar with the butter makes me feel like it should re-solidify a little bit. And so maybe the person writing the recipe has a very cold kitchen and that 10 minutes was enough for the for the butter to set again. So if I make this in the future, I'm probably gonna put my butter in the fridge for like those 10 minutes to see if it sets up because I was essentially just adding sugar to a liquid and it was just melting. Granted, the cookies still came out delicious, so not a issue there, but just the recipe and reality were not meshing for what I experienced. But that butter, because you're melting it on the stovetop, you could brown the butter. And I think that would add a delicious depth of flavor that will just elevate these even more. And if you're browning the butter, just make sure you add in a little water when you're mixing everything together because browning the butter will evaporate some of the water content from the butter. So you just need to add a little bit of that liquid back in to make everything stay balanced. I got through this a lot quicker than the 10 minutes that I did the previous time. So we flew through. Obviously, if you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. If you make these, let me know how they turned out for you. But I highly recommend. If you're having a craving for the Little Debbie oatmeal cream pies, make this recipe. You won't be disappointed. It is, in the words of my friend, so good. Like, they're great. Very excited for these. I will probably be making these many times in the future, and I'm going to be browning that butter the next time because that just sounds really good to me. And so on that note, bye mom, still not dead. See ya.